And so this is kind of our second session, but it's our first sort of really working session. Last session was just to kind of give an intro to each other and to the process. So what I'd like to do today is kind of quickly review where you are, what, if anything, is holding you back, and then share whatever results we've got and help to either get through any roadblocks or to accelerate the process. And are you on your way, Heather, are you on your way to the valley?
No, I'm in the valley.
Oh, you're in the valley. Okay.
I just felt sitting in, I wasn't sure where I was going, and then I said, oh, I could sit in my car.
Yeah, it's amazing the technology allows us to do some of the things we do.
Yes,
You've got a little
cool and damp here.
Well, you've got a really good signal, by the way.
Oh,
so
good.
That's probably better than your Wi-Fi signal because you're on your phone right now. So you've got a, presumably you're.
Well, I'm near the building. I should have some Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at my, I have Wi-Fi. My internet is a little, doesn't seem to have too many bars.
All right. Okay, so tell you what, let's Heather, if we can start with you, sort of where are you in the process? What we had wanted to do at this point, when we talked about it last week, module 3 was kind of the getting into the the PAVF, and we had done that with each of you as part of your original initial consult. So then we wanted to kind of jump into the whole describing yourself. So this was the word pile. Listing out some of your accomplishments in very quick draft form. How far into that process have you got?
Well, I was working on it, and I was getting. I've sort of gone through it. I just run into. How shall we say? I have a large word pile.
Okay.
That I've sort of narrowed down a bit. My accomplishments are a little challenging.
Okay.
It's hard to, well, because what I have, 5 of them are educational. I'm not sure if they're, all that, and most of them I don't have the designation anymore.
Okay.
So,
so as a comment just about the process, at this point, the accomplishments can be personal, educational, professional. It really doesn't matter. We're trying to use the accomplishments really to help you figure out of the word pile. Oh, we just lost Tony. Of the word pile, which parts are, which words you use more often.
Right.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to spend a lot of time in future sessions going through the accomplishments and tightening them up, and at that point we'll either start to try to translate the educational ones into things that employers would resonate with employers, or we might dig deeper for more accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, it's funny. I didn't get a whole lot of way, but I wrote down my education ones on one sheet, and then I did my other more personal ones, I guess, on the other sheet. And I was sort of thinking, transforming my backyard into a garden. I suppose it has some detail and some initiative. I don't know if I was efficient, maybe organized, nothing to do with numbers. Maybe task oriented.
Okay.
because I also now, like this summer, we've been working on my deck, so reconfiguring my deck. So like I was, I started with a little diagram. I like watching the home renovation shows. I like floor plans, but that's not. I don't have there's a little bit of me that's creative, but not. It doesn't come out in my word pile.
Okay. Well, the other thing is as a strong PA, creativity might not be something you're particularly trying to lean into, right? So remember, at the end of the day, this is about, when you are limited to 8 or 9 words, which are the words that you want to kind of pepper your stories with, and and everything that you do and talk about yourself, to really create a very strong image with somebody. So one of the, when we go through, and this is the whole point of the word pile process, is that you're starting with 25 or 30 words, because we all like to think we're all everything, right? But by forcing it through this filter of let's look at what you've actually done. And if you think about the home reno projects you just talked about, so the garden would arguably be a bit of creativity, but things like task oriented, absolutely. Efficient, you're not still doing the garden. You probably set yourself a time limit and you nailed it. Whereas other projects can, I've seen people spend years building a deck. So there is, so there can be you can certainly use that as task oriented, design oriented, initiative, creativity again, if it fits. What we're going to do in this whole exercise is really hone the let's say half dozen or 8 words that you really want to own. And again, as a PA, the general reason why we do that assessment at the front end and the PAVF is if you aligned with that work style, those are probably the words that you're going to use to describe yourself. They're going to generally be P words and A words.
Yeah, and actually, I would even go to say it's probably more A than P.
Okay.
Mainly because when I first did it, I was slightly more A than P, and so my words that I have so far are detailed, efficient, initiative, organized, affinity for numbers,
okay,
helpful, problem resolution, and task oriented.
Okay, AAAP, 1 F in there, and then back to A and P.
Oh, the helpful, is my F.
Well, I mean, generally, that's, yes, you would sort of say helpful would probably be an F attribute.
Which actually is interesting, because sometimes in the past when I've tried to describe what do I do, it's basically been helping people. I either help the advisors, I help the clients, I'm helping Brad, I'm helping his friend.
Well, and so here's another way to think about this. And remember, I think I said probably in our private consults, but I say it all the time. All models are wrong. Some are useful. Okay. So again, don't get hung up and say, oh, I can't use an F word because I'm not an F person. This is really, this
F was my third one.
Okay. Well,
F came in third.
well, here's the point. This was to get you started. The PA, again, that was just to kind of get your head thinking about, oh, okay, yeah, that's kind of the way I am. The other thing to think about specifically in a word like helpful is you have to kind of dig down one more level. Like, how is it that you help people? Because some people are helpful because they're empathetic and sympathetic and, oh, poor you, let me give you a big hug, Other people are helpful like, okay, here, you need to get off your ass, up you go, come on, let's go, do this. And so it really depends on, when you think about helping the people you just mentioned and the people at work, how were you helping them? You were probably helping them by helping them understand how to get things done in the organization.
Yes, I'm task oriented. Yes.
Okay. Well, but so it might be more, rather than helpful, it might be education. It might be educating or facilitating people learning new how the organization works. Or so I just want to, one of the things we want to do, and you'll be doing this as the exercises continue, is unpack some of these words, because helpful probably means different things to myself, Tony, and to you. And so no doubt it will be heard differently by someone else. So you want to be able to kind of, when someone says, well, what do you mean by helpful? Oh, well, let me give you either an example, or you can say, well, generally I'm helpful because I work to educate people, or one of the things I like to say that I do is I help people reframe things. So I take, somebody who sees something as a current barrier, I can, okay, well, let's reframe that and make that actually a way forward, or let's, so again, helpful is a, I really want to summarize it, I guess, by saying there's lots of different ways to help. Can we get more specific? That was
okay. So I put helpful, educate. So, but yes, I had quite a few words, but but then yeah, a lot of them I've been using because and you know, when you have to be descriptive on a cover letter, that's where I got affinity for numbers, how to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think I had somewhere I had a keen eye for details rather than just detail oriented.
Perfect. And that's nice too, because, but again, when you tell me that in conversation or on your, resume, I'm immediately going to say, yeah, sure. Right. I mean, because again, when I'm reading a resume, I'm highly skeptical because people say all kinds of things. So now you would need a keen eye for detail. How does that perpetrate? How does that show itself in the work you do or in the things you've accomplished? Because of my keen eye for detail, I was able to see, this thing that no one else could see. And
Right.
that enabled me to build this better process.
So, okay, one person did say I was good quality control on something.
Okay.
I was doing accounts payable, and I was sort of new to the organization, new to the stuff, and probably asked a lot of questions, but I did catch one or two things.
Okay.
And yeah, so she said I was good quality control. I don't, it's these things, it's like, how do you take that and make it sound good?
Well, and that's what we're going to spend a few weeks on, frankly.
Okay.
But that's great. So a keen
control.
eye to detail can link up very nicely with, a lower rate of errors or no rate of errors on payroll that was recognized and acknowledged by leadership. Right. Now, the single thing that's missing there is being able to quantify the result. So it's nice that the leader identified it. What would be really nice is to be able to say, reducing the error rate from, 3 per month to 0, resulting in less NSF checks, or resulting in reduction in clients or employees that were, pissed off and angry at the boss or something. So the business. Typically, business results, the only thing ultimately that we want to try to nail this down to is increased revenue, decreased cost, increased customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction. And all of those, if you can quantify them, so much the better. Right? More happy customers sounds good, but if you're able to say improving the customer satisfaction rate by 6 points, that sounds like it sounds more believable, like you actually did it because you quantified it.
I think the idea is that we should quantify things, even though I've considered everything I've done is there's nothing I haven't been measured on any quantifiable things.
So yes, we're not going to quantify them at this stage, but we are in 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to spend a lot of time trying to quantify them. Because the reality is, Heather, is if you can't quantify them, then they're just, it's all kind of goodness. Great. I've got great employees. They all do great things. But, when the push comes to shove, because here's the thing is when push comes to shove, you want to be able to say, look, these are the results I deliver. Or better yet, you want people to look at you and say, we ain't getting rid of Heather. Look at what she delivers. Right.
And yet everything I've done, I'm sure it could be measurable, but it's never been coached in those terms. or minimal annual reviews,
And yeah, part of that is organizations aren't particularly good. Surprisingly, they're not nearly as good as they should be at quantifying results of work. But the other thing is oftentimes it's just, you work in processes and the processes exist because the processes exist and this is what the work is done. And whether you're doing it incredibly well or just, getting by, it's kind of seen as a background activity. But the truth is that if you weren't there, or if you weren't as detail oriented as a fine eye for detail, what would happen? Well, there would be more bounce checks. There would be more unhappy customers. There would be more clients that said, your products are great, but my God, you guys can't invoice for, to beat the band. I'm going to go and, I'm going to take my business somewhere else. All those things would happen without having, good structured processes and people that know how to manage them. So the results are very real. What we have to do is tease out quantified aspect of them.
Okay.
But not today. That's not today's task.
Oh,
Today's task
okay.
is to reduce the word list to to that handful of 8 or 9 descriptors.
Oh, I didn't put honest in there. But, but
So let's shift gears for a second. Tony, how about you? Where are you in the process? You're muted. You're muted. You're still muted. There you go.
That's better. Sorry, my phone was acting up earlier, but like you said, poor workman blames his tools. I'm a techno peasant. I'm past the word pile and I'm into unpacking the backpack.
Okay.
And accomplishments. The word pile, and just so Heather knows, I'm a little bit behind because I moved this week and I still haven't finished. I'm only partly unpacked. With the word pile, good selection. I added a couple of words to it. And one of them was get her done.
Okay.
I've always been able to, if there's a big task ahead of me and will we be able to get it done? I've always managed to get it done by hook or by crook.
Okay.
So I work, nothing dishonest, nothing illegal, but it always gets done. So can I set up the store in the store I used to have? It got set up in record time. Mind you, I was working 16 or 18 hours a day, but it still got done.
Okay.
And so it all becomes part of it, and that's my whole approach. When I take a task on, I just throw everything else aside and go.
Okay.
So there's no fooling around with it.
Okay. So that is very much a P attribute, and especially the language, get her done, right? I don't care if it takes 16 hours a day, I'm getting it done. And again, think about it from this perspective. This is the big difference between you two, I believe, is you're both dominant Ps. Heather is more a detail-oriented process type of person. So essentially, puts in place and or follows rules and structure, and likes I suspect, Heather, don't let me put words in your mouth. You appreciate a structured environment where it is clear what needs to get done and who's supposed to do what and however. In the dominant P world, so what you just said, Tony, get her done, is, in fact, you use the words by hook or by crook, which basically the way that an A would hear that, I suspect, is, oh God, here's somebody who's going to break the rules. Here's somebody who's just going to
Exactly.
make it happen. Yeah, and not to suggest that you're just, but you're the proverbial, that attitude is the proverbial bull in a china shop. It might be a tame bull that tries not to break china, but frankly, breaking the china is less important than getting the result, right? And again, so when you
that I added, yeah.
Sorry,
go away. The other word that I added was take charge, or phrase that I added was take charge.
Yeah. Okay.
So when it comes to a difficult situation, I've always stepped in and looked at the objective and gone on and said, okay, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
You don't like it? That's great. Let's talk about it for 2 minutes, but we still have to get this done.
Yeah. And again, one of the things, and I'm, when I talk about the PAVF, I tend to be fairly stereotypical in my definitions because I'm trying to create vivid pictures, right? Not all Ps are bulls in china shops, but they are oriented around the important thing. And I said this earlier, is what's important to you when you hear the instructions is get the result. What's important to an A, if we just had a dominant A and not a PA like Heather, but a dominant A, what's important to the A is following the process. That trumps getting the result. A PA actually has a bit of a conflict. So Heather has a bit of a conflict built in, because the P in her wants to just get the job done. The A in her wants to follow the rules. And whenever she comes across a situation where the rules seem to get in the way of getting the job done,
I have an ethical dilemma.
That's right. You got a bit of a conflict. But, you know, we all have these internal conflicts, right? And again, that's just the nature of the beast. And so it's at that point where, you know, which is more dominant? Are you more a dominant P or are you more a dominant A? Because if you were more a dominant A, that would tend to override the P desire to just get the result. If you were dominant P over A, that part would, you know, you'd hate to break the rules, but God damn it, the rules don't make sense. I'm gonna do it this way. A dominant P with not a lot of A just doesn't have that conflict, because to them it's the rules. Clearly, if the rules are keeping us from getting the job done, clearly the rules are stupid. Like, I mean, we don't even need to discuss this, right?
But especially if they have anything to do with the government.
So, but again, these are the reason why we want to do this is, and ultimately this is what these descriptor words that you're ultimately going to create from your word pile through the use of using that filter of your unpacking the backpack, is ultimately the words that you're going to be most comfortable describing yourself as in your story, right? Okay. So as an example, Tony, in your case, you want to attract people that are looking for somebody who just gets her done, right? If I was in the government, as an example, if I was in the government and again, these things are all contextual, but for instance, you might scare the bejesus out of me if I was in a government organization where it was more important to me in my career that nobody rocks the boat, right? Because you sound a bit like a boat rocker there, Tony. Okay. And that's good, because you probably you would hate to be in an organization where they said, Tony, slow down. You're making the rest of us look bad. No, Tony, it's more important to follow the rules than to get the job done. You'd say that this makes no sense. You guys are just, you know, wrong planet. So this is what we're doing with the language, is we want to shape it so that it attracts the kinds of people that appreciate what we do, and it attracts those kinds of work situations. You're looking for a work situation where they really want to just get her done kind of person, right? You know, Heather is looking for a work environment that really wants process structure, repeatability, predictability, efficiency. You know, and that's not to say you don't like those things, Tony, but that's not what you're about getting the thing done. He goes offline. I must have upset him. No, you're muted.
My phone keeps overheating. That's the problem.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
I keep getting a warning that it's now shut off data and turns on again.
Oh, isn't that strange? Okay. Well, okay. So you guys are both, as far as I can tell, at this point, you're in good shape, because you've done the initial word pile. You're working through the. Are you both clear about how you're using your accomplishments or your unpacking of your backpack to use that to sort of force rank the descriptors, or to rank the descriptors? Sorry, to rank the word pile to see which ones you're using more often? Is that part of the exercise kind of clear to you?
Yeah, I've started it.
Okay.
This one?
Yeah. Okay. And Tony, that's at the point you're just getting to?
I'm just getting to it now.
Okay. So the idea here is that when you are listing out, as Heather was mentioning earlier, she listed out a few different things. And what you're really just trying to do is go through any one of those single statements from your career backpack, and then saying, okay, what was it about me that enabled me to get this job done? So, and that's when we're looking through our word list. You know, was it my persistence? Was it my integrity? Was it my wisdom? Was it my get her done attitude? And what you want to be is somewhat selective. It's not all of them all the time, because then you're going to, you're not going to get much use out of the exercise. But what you will find when you do that is, as an example in your case, Tony, is the get or done is thematic of a whole bunch of these things. And so it's going to, you're going to ultimately rank it higher, I suspect, than some of the other words, right? And what we're using this for is kind of the first cut to take those 30 words down to, let's say 12 or 13 or 14. And again, this is more of an art than a science. So if you look at the 13 or 14 words you've reduced it to, and there's a word that's missing that you think, no, this word, I really still like integrity and it doesn't seem to show up in these things, then don't discard it yet. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing you can do is looking at the words that are coming through the filter. You can also then look for, are there some combinations of words that generally mean the same? So as an example, if you had in your initial word pile, you had persistence and perseverance and get or done, right? You might decide that all three of those in your mind kind of mean the same thing. And the best summary in your mind is get or done or persistence or whatever the case is. So we're using this because what we really want to do is end up with those themes of here are the words that I'm now going to essentially embed in. I'm going to teach myself over time to embed these in my conversations, in how I describe myself, in how I describe what I've done in the past. So for instance, when I went through this, my key descriptors, and going through exactly the same process, structured, a catalyst. I like catalyst. It wasn't in the word pile, but I always had thought of myself as a catalyst. Analytical, accountable, passionate, visionary, insightful, curious. I've added curious over the last number of years because I discovered, again, upon further reflection, it's like curiosity is a big thing for me. I used to be referred to in many of my roles as a giant sponge, because I'm the kind of guy that keeps asking, well, why are we doing that? Why are we doing it that way? What was the point? Teach me, teach me. I want to know. So what you're going to find as you go through this exercise is that those are now the words that in the next several sessions, we're going to then weave through your stories. So the things that are currently your backpack, single line statements are going to turn into meaty accomplishments that embed the emotional word and that results orientation that we were talking about earlier with Heather. Because ultimately the accomplishments want to be written or constructed with sort of the following linkages. When tasked to do the following, because I'm wired like this is how I approach the role, and these are the results that I got, right? So it'll be some variation of those things. I was tasked with this because of the way I see the world, because of how I look at things, because of my persistence, because of my get or done attitude, because of my, fine attention to detail. I did this thing, I created these things or built this process or opened up this, this office under budget, under time, which resulted in ... And that's the results for the organization, right? So, getting us to revenue generation, 3 weeks earlier than planned, or, reducing our customer churn rate by 3 points, resulting in 200,000 of target sales for the year. Those kinds of things. So what you're painting is a picture for people that read or hear these stories is, geez, no matter what I give this person, because they're this kind of way, they're going to get these fabulous results, right?
As part of this unpacking the backpack and these accomplishments, is it going to lead to the to that, you know, those interview questions of give me an example of when you did this. And because those are the things I find the hardest, is trying to remember
Yeah.
any sort of example of what I did.
Yeah. Oh,
And
trust me.
then keeping them keeping them straight. Am I going to use that for this question, or am I using it for this question?
Yeah. By the time you finish this, the idea is that these, you know, these half dozen or dozen accomplishments will be your go-to stories. You'll be able to tell them. In some cases, you might tell them in a couple of different ways. So, as an example, you might have a story about, well, let's say about reducing the errors in the pay process, which increased people's satisfaction. So your basic story might be about it might be about your fine attention to detail. You might also tell that story about your initiative in identifying a problem that no one else had mentioned to you, but you jumped on it, and that's the kind of person you are, right? I'm a high initiative person. I saw this, I saw a lot of people complaining about paychecks that were wrong or incomplete or late, and I took it upon myself to improve the process, resulting in ... So, so the nice thing about that story is you can tell it from a couple of different angles. And most of our stories are like that, because they don't typically just have one aspect of your personality coming through. But what you want to do is what you want to make sure is that when you do them in written form, that you don't include both. You can't sort of have the same story in your list of accomplishments with two different personality figures, because people would see that. They'd say, well, hold it, isn't that the same story up here, but this is about integrity and this is about timeliness or something. So that's the only caveat I would say, is when you're telling your stories, you want to choose which story is best representative of, in an interview situation, as you were talking about, of what the person is asking. Right. But the beautiful thing about this is that if you end up with, let's say, just to put a number around, let's say 8 to 10 go-to stories, and you've written them out several times, and you've sweated the details to try to figure out what the results are, and this is stuff that we'll do together. You're going to remember them. They're going to be very top of mind, because you will have spent a fair bit of time, thinking them through. And you're not, nobody is going to exhaust you and sort of say, well, I need 15 stories. Geez, Heather, I only heard 10. I need to hear 5 more. Generally in an interview, if you end up talking about 2 or 3 things you've actually done, that's probably a fairly detailed interview. Does that make sense? Okay.
I'm just writing one down.
Oh, good. Good. The other part, there's a small little, actually, both of you have identified sort of extra phrases that you've added. That's also the point of the career ad exercise that is listed, if you've done that. So this is just basically in your ongoing, I'm sure, as much as I try to keep people off of the job boards, you're still looking at the job boards from time to time.
I was going to ask, how are we supposed to stay away from that? Especially when people keep saying, oh, apply for this job, and oh, apply for that job.
Well, it's a perfect question. The problem is the industry kind of drives you that way, right? We make it easy for you. It shows up in your browser, Here's the thing I would say is temper your enthusiasm to fill them out with, do they really feel like my perfect job? As much as you can describe your perfect job today, do they really feel like your perfect job? If so, then, yes, they're probably worth following up on. Recognizing that the difficulty, and we get into this kind of later in the process, but what you will have seen in my training, I'll review this. Every job that is posted already has a preferred candidate. Okay, you can pretty much use that. I mean, that might not be true 100% of the time, but it's probably true 99.3% of the time or something. So the question then becomes, what is it about you that is going to make you special? Like, is it really in your wheelhouse? Because remember, there's 300 other people that are going to spend a couple of hours to put an application together, and everybody's going to position themselves as the best thing since sliced bread. So how do you get through that noise? How do you get around the fact that there's a preferred candidate? And then the third question I would ask is, do you have any roots into influencers or people that are knowledgeable about these positions through your current network? If the answer to the last one is yes, then it's absolutely worth your time to pick up the phone, reach out to those people and say, hey, I just saw this really interesting job in this part of the organization, or that, you know, through it, that I think is a buddy of you or connected to LinkedIn. I'm intrigued to apply for it, but I really don't know anything about the organization or the person themselves. You know, can you add any validity, or can you add any knowledge to this position? So for instance, the person might say, oh, well, you know, as an example, geez, they're always trolling for product managers. They're not hiring there. They do this all the time because they're looking to build up their database. Or, oh, I happen to know so-and-so very well. And actually, Heather, based on what I know about you, you'd be actually a pretty good fit. So, you know, I'd be happy to introduce you to so-and-so. The thing you have to watch out for is that once it is posted, it is now in the domain of HR. Nobody likes to screw with HR because we get our hands slapped and possibly lawsuits and stuff. So nobody wants to be accused of nepotism or playing favorites. So the minute the job is posted and HR now owns the process, most everybody, hiring managers, influencers, everybody will say, hey, Heather, if you want to go for it, you should just apply for the job. Because I don't want to be seen to be, you know, I don't want to be caught out using back channels if I'm that hiring manager, or if I'm an influencer, the hiring manager. So the challenge in all of that is that the only real way to influence this stuff is before the job gets posted, which is, you know, sort of what we talk about and what we will be doing proactively. All of that to say, I would use the job boards for two things. One is, if and when you do see those perfect fit jobs, then based on what we just talked about, decide whether it's worth the, you know, hour that it's going to take you to apply for it, right? It may be worth applying for it because that will help you shape your story anyway. Okay? It may be worth you applying for it just simply because it feels like such a great fit that, you know, even though there's not much chance of you getting an interview, it would be worth it if I did, okay? So, you know, think about it from that perspective. What you really want to do is save, you know, use your time very selectively. And is that the best use of an hour or an hour and a half of your time? The second value, I think, of the job boards right now for you is the career ad exercise, which is look at how they're describing these roles. If this is a perfect role for you, look at how it's described and steal liberally those ideas to build into your own story, okay? So for instance, Tony, if they say, you know, we're looking for a get it done kind of guy that, you know, no holes barred, does blah, blah, blah. And you think, wow, that's great. That's me. That's how I want to be perceived. That's great language. So steal the language and bring it back into this exercise and see how you can use it in your own description of yourself.
Oh, so write the cover letter, basically. Because that's what I would use my job descriptions, is try to pull out what they want in a cover letter, but it's a little bit more involved than that.
Yeah, what I'm thinking more is that when I say sort of take out the language that they use, is they will describe, you know, we're looking for a self-starter initiative with, you know, blah, 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 and such and such and such and such. If those descriptions are how they describe the role, and especially the responsibilities of the role, if those resonate with you, then take those and bring them back into this process. Because those will be nice ways that you might choose to describe the opportunities you're looking for in our next piece of work, which is the opportunity sought. Okay, I'm not suggesting you would. There's a specific way that we look at writing cover letters, which is in a sort of side-by-side table, right? And typically what you're trying to do in a cover letter, because remember, the way that you're going to go forward here is, first of all, only applying selectively for roles where you don't have already a a back channel or some influencer. But if you do that, you're going to be sending in your resume, which is generally generic, because we're creating the resume around what you really want, not the multiple different stories that are floating around in your head. So you're going to generally send in a generic resume, maybe with a few little adjustments to it. But where you're really going to do the matching is in the cover letter. And in the cover letter, the structure that we advocate is, it says, you know, dear sirs, I'm applying for whatever, whatever. You asked for, and in the left column, it says, here's what you asked for specifically. And literally you cut and paste it out of the job ad. In the right-hand column next to it, you say, here's my applicability to those things. So if it says something like, you know, 10 years of progressive software experience, including Java, you don't just say yes. What you want to say is, you know, 17 years with 12 different software languages, including Java, C++, and something else. So you're sort of showing, hey, not only do I meet these requirements, but I almost exceed them, or I exceed them. And really, what this is really a sort of a tat for tat. You know, this is a blow-by-blow thing. You ask for this. This is how I meet or exceed. You ask for this. Here's how I meet or exceed. You ask for this. Here's how I meet or exceed. So now, when I'm reading that as the HR person, it's like, well, hey, this person meets everything we're looking for. Right. So that's a very powerful cover letter, because again, what we're trying to do in all of this, the cover letter and the resume. The resume is to create a emotional connection with the reader, because one of the worst things that can happen is somebody starts scanning, because the minute you scan, you start jumping all back and forth, and you're looking for just kind of little data points. What you're trying to do is grab the right reader's attention and then follow it through, and you want the reader to actually build an emotional connection with you. And that's why we're spending a lot of time on the words, and ultimately embedding those in the accomplishments, and how we package up the overall opportunity sought statement. So the resume is to create, as much as possible, an emotional connection with the reader. Okay. The cover letter is to show that everything you've asked for, I deliver in spades. Right. And that's hard. And so there you do want people to kind of be jumping back and forth. Oh yeah, we asked for this. Oh, they got that. Oh, they've got that. Oh, they've got, oh, okay. Yep. Looks like they meet the requirements.
And if you don't meet them all, don't apply?
Well, or you have to be able to say, I don't, you know, I mean, at some level, they're going to identify this. Well, you know, we asked for, I don't know, we asked for bilingualism, but you don't have French. So if you still want to apply for the role, you know, this is where I would say you probably don't want to apply. Or if they have used language that allows for any kind of like or equivalency, then you can talk about how you do have something that is equivalent. That's generally not the case in a language, but it might be in something like a PMP certification, project management certification, or equivalent. Because they create equivalency to allow wiggle room, to allow their preferred candidate to be able to be considered for the role.
Right.
If you know, for example, that it is not actually a requirement of the position, but they've asked for it anyway, you might add in something that says, you know, not applicable for the following reasons. But again, here's the challenge: is HR owns this part of the process, so that, you know, if you don't meet their requirements and they got the requirements blessed by the hiring manager, then that is a legitimate reason for us not to consider your candidacy. There's two.
And the bilingual ones, yeah, I've given up on applying for them.
Yeah, and the problem is, again, there's 300 other people applying for that job, and there will be somebody that is bilingual. You know, there will be somebody that meets all the requirements. They may not be nearly as good a candidate as you, but that's not what they're asking. You know, they're not asking, are you the best candidate? They're asking, do you meet these 12 things that we've identified as critical to the role? Right. So this is why it is really important to get, you know, when we get further into the process, is that whole you know, networking piece and going out and building the you know, rapport and connection with people who can then effectively be your champions for roles, right? And then, you know, the real beautiful thing is when they start to design the role around you, because you are now the preferred candidate. You know, I've met Heather, she'd be brilliant for this organization. I still know that I need to go through the process, but I will work with HR to ensure that the job description is written such that Heather can get through that filter. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, which is how things actually work. Does that, so at this point, what we're going to do basically is continue with the word pile, with the idea that we want to have that reduced to your, you know, 8 words for our homework next week. And as a bonus exercise, if you get a chance to do the beliefs and values. That's not totally critical, because we will come back to that much later in the process. But just, it's part of this module. So if you can get through that exercise, it's a pretty easy exercise. At least the values part is, because it's another word selection exercise.
It's very similar to the other word pile.
It's another word pile. Because again, what we're trying to do, and just to sort of lay out how we'll use those, the current word pile that you're creating are going to be your descriptors. These are the things, these are the words that you're, as I mentioned, my words. These are the words that you're ultimately going to build you and your story around, right? This is who I am. I'm a get her done kind of person. I'm this, I'm that. And here, and I can tell you chapter and verse of stories, all, you know, how that showed its, how that created positive results for my clients or on my projects, right? So those words are very, very important for this stage of describing your story, describing who you are. Where the values and beliefs will become important is as a filter when you are looking at opportunities, okay? And here's what I mean by that, is that what we want to do is we want to attract opportunities that align with who you are and how you describe yourself, right? So Tony, I'm going to go with your example of get her done, right? So we got, hey, Tony, we got this amazing project. It's a real get her done special. I don't care, you know, I don't care what damage and carnage you cause in them. You know, we just need to get this thing done, right? So all of that, again, I'm being a bit stereotypical, but all of that language would be really appealing to you. You'd say, wow, they're really looking for somebody like me that can jump in, you know, roll up my sleeves, get this stuff done. But you will have certain beliefs and values. For instance, I don't want to work for either this kind of an industry or these kinds of people, or you know, in this kind of sector, whatever it is. So the example that I like to use is something like the tobacco industry, because, you know, we've vilified that for decades, right? So let's say, as an example, that for whatever reason, you just cannot condone the tobacco industry. That's really a value and belief, right? That's got nothing to do with your work style. It's a value and belief. The tobacco, we might have a get her done kind of role in the tobacco industry that is just a perfect fit. They're going to pay me a ton of money. This is what they need done. I can do this. Oh, I've lost them again. Sorry, Tony. We'll get them back. Is it your thing is you're heating up again?
That's all the.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyway, so to finish off that example, so the tobacco industry role might be perfect for you, but it doesn't align with your values and beliefs for whatever reason, and that's not important to anybody except yourself. What you want to be doing is you want to be pursuing those opportunities, but then using the value and belief as the filter for, do I want to lock down those opportunities? And typically when we've done these kinds of things, we already have this innately. It's called our gut, right? My gut's telling me I should say no, but my head and my wallet and everything else is telling me I need to say yes. And we tend to override our gut. And usually it's to our disadvantage because we discovered that our gut actually is a pretty good, knows us pretty well. And so the point here is really to create some structured way of giving credence to your gut. So now you can look at this and saying the single problem I have with this opportunity is it does not align with my belief system. You know, one of my values of high integrity, this person sounds like a bit of a schemer, or this organization feels like they don't really respect the things I respect. And the whole point of doing that is really just to be able to give yourself a, as I say, to give some credence to your to what you already feel internally is your gut, but to formalize it in a way that your rational brain can process it. Does that make sense? Okay. So you can do the exercise now. It's a very quick exercise for the values. We won't really come back to that until we're deep into opportunity creation, which is, in some weeks' time. So I think that's it. So we're just going to.
What about the vision planner?
So you're welcome to take a shot at that. The vision and mission is a little bit more intricate. It's definitely worth doing it. This is about sort of where you want to go longer term, right? You know, what is your vision for yourself 5 years from now? And if you enjoy that exercise, and if that is something that is, top of mind for you right now, it's definitely worth doing the exercise. At this point, really, that's going to be more. So if you think about the reinvention process, what we're doing is we're reinventing how you think about yourself, right? That, and how you refer to yourself and how you are going to ultimately position and sell yourself. The vision mission piece is kind of the longer path you're on. And to the degree that you can describe that now, or that you want to start describing it, it's definitely worthwhile doing. I would suggest the vision mission will actually clarify over time, over the coming months, as your reinvention starts to kind of kick in.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes, it's hard to plan your career in 10 years when you don't know what it is now.
Yeah. Well, and the most important thing is to, at this point, is to get clear on what it is you really care about and believe in. And then ultimately, my belief in my own experience is that the path shows up. Because once you kind of get once you kind of get the reinvention going, and you start saying, hey, this is the stuff I love really putting myself into, that's then going to fuel your mission and vision ideas, right? So for instance, you might get in and say, I love being busy and helping small businesses structure themselves. And then as you're in there, you do a couple of gigs like that, and you think, you know what, actually, I'm really good at this, and I think I'm ready to go out on my own and do this as a third-party consultant. So, formalize that business structure. And then that might get you, as you go down that path, you discover that actually you're really good at it, and you want to build a team of other people that can help small businesses, because now you see that, as an example, small business is the lifeblood of Eastern Ontario, or of Ontario, or of Canada. And for whatever reason, you become passionate about that. And so your sort of path starts to unfold based on some of the steps you're taking. If you are, those people that sort of knew at the age of 6 that they wanted to be an astronaut, or wanted to, be in the ballet, or whatever it is. I mean, wow, I wish I had that level of clarity. And some people do, but most of us don't. Most of us are still trying to, kind of figure out, I don't know, what do I want to do with my life? So to the degree that you can spend a bit of time on those exercises, and they help, or even that they just kind of document where your head is at right now, it's a worthwhile exercise. Don't sweat it, though. Let me put it that way. Don't sweat it. If you're kind of going, geez, I really don't know what my vision is. It's like, okay, well, that's okay. That'll come in time.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I have, this is probably out of the scope, but part of my dilemma is that, am I looking for a job in Ottawa, or am I looking for a job in the Valley? And actually there was a job posting that that Brad has contacted the person to find out more information about it. No, they think it'll be perfect for me and I should apply. But it's like, and apparently they don't hire that often, so I could have the job for life. And it's like, but where am I living?
Well, and so here's one of the things, and again, COVID has really made this much clearer for a lot of people, is that might be a false choice of having to choose, you know, where you live, because it might be that the work that you do doesn't require a physical presence, or it requires you only to be physically there one day a week to collect all the paperwork and processes and you know, have face-to-face conversations with a few people or something. And a large part of the work can be done from your car, or, you know, from your home, or from anywhere else. So I think, and again, this is going to be very dependent on the kind of work you like to do.
Right.
Right. So what I would say is don't, at this stage, I would pursue opportunities, just because if nothing else, having people, you know, want you and being able to practice discussing things with people is good practice. But you're not necessarily, I think COVID allows us the opportunity to challenge some of the ongoing stereotypes about work and where it happens. So if you were to say, look, your job sounds absolutely fascinating, what I'd be comfortable with is coming out one day a week, maybe 2 days, and sleeping over one night. But you know, but generally the work I'm going to be able to support you from my home in Ottawa. And they might say, look, I'm sorry, we got a real problem with that. We're a bunch of, you know, we're a bunch of people that truly believe that the only way you can manage people is if they're physically sitting there in this space in front of you, to which you can say, terrific, that's great. I'm glad that you have such clarity about how work happens. That doesn't align with my view. So, you know, thanks anyway. Right. So think about it from, you know, COVID, not for everything, but COVID has created now a recognition in a lot of organizations that work happens differently than they thought it did. Right. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the work that I imagine both of you do can absolutely be done. You know, all the process work, all the accounting work, all the structured work, all the phone calls with clients and or employees can all, we've proven for the last 6 months, it can all be done from, you know, home. Mm-hmm. So there are opportunities, and I think this is one of the great things about doing this reinvention process right now, is that the more you start building this into your overall value proposition, the more you can kind of, if not dictate, but influence the opportunities that are going to resonate with you and that are going to be great fits for you. Mm-hmm.
Right. I suspect that because apparently the position that they're replacing was part-time and now will be full-time, and it's a bit of bookkeeping and general office duties. I suspect that they probably want someone on location, and we're talking small town, so.
Yeah. Well, and again, here's the thing: is that here's what I would say. One of the mistakes that we all make, way more often than possibly we should, is we assume things and we don't bother to verify them. Mm-hmm. And you know, there's no harm in saying, look, you know, as an office job, here's what I'm proposing. Is that doable? And they might say, no, it needs to be in the office. Great. Glad I asked the question. Glad I got it clarified. But we tend to, and again, this is not just in jobs. This is in many things. We tend to assume that we already know the answer to something. Mm-hmm. And remember when I said I discovered I was really endlessly curious? Mm-hmm. What I realized is that I don't actually know anything. I know a lot less than I thought I did. And so it always benefits to ask the question, hey, Tony, right, this is what I'm hearing. Did I get that right? I'm curious. Why did you say that? What did you mean by this? Because the way that we're all wired is we all assume that if you think about communication, it's amazing, right? I'm trying to communicate something to you. I choose certain words that may or may not actually align with what I'm trying to communicate. You're going to hear those words possibly different than I said. You're going to interpret them differently, quite possibly different than I meant. Okay. Then you're going to respond based on what you heard or what you think you heard or how you interpreted what I heard. And I'm probably then, and we get into kind of quite possibly an emotional, like, I can't believe he said that, right? My God, he's just pissed me off. It's intentional. And we jump into this kind of emotional state without verifying, here's what I heard you say. Did I get that right? I just want to clarify, what did you mean by that? I'm a bit confused. And my contention is if we did that more often, we would have a lot less conflicts and we would be much better communicators, right? So think about that in terms of the kinds of just assumptions that we make about for instance, that office manager role. And that's probably a good assumption, but it's still worth testing. Because if the answer was, well, actually, Heather, we're open to other alternatives, that might be an opportunity that is worth pursuing.
Okay.
So, and if nothing else, in the process of being curious and asking the questions, you always get a lot more data. You always get a lot more context for a better understanding of the roles or of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that all make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so basically homework is continue with the module 4. If you are comfortable, you can move on to module 5. Module 5 is when we're going to start shaping the actual story, the resume. And all of the work that we're doing in module 4 is going to be revisited and reused in module 5. So there is, that's the good thing about this process is it continues to build on the work you've already done.
Okay.
Any final questions, thoughts, observations?
I think that given the exercise of my understanding of the involvement, I'm going to restart module 4 over again and go through it with the attention, with a different perspective. So word pile, and then on, I need to give it a little more attention what I did this week. I was slightly distracted.
Okay.
Described that my office will be fully operational at the end of this week, so there won't be any problem, I hope.
Okay. Well, and tell you what, Tony, so you're breaking up there a little bit. What I heard was that you weren't really able to put as much attention because you're in the middle of a big move. So clearly, from a productivity perspective, your focus is get the move done. Forget the boot camp. Get the move done. You can catch up once you have a good productive environment. And then if you want to revisit the stuff you've done, that's fine. What you will find is the revisiting process is much easier, right? This whole reinvention process takes a lot of time and effort the first time around. But then what I want you to be on is kind of almost a continuous, I wouldn't say a reinvention, but a continuous evolution phase, right? Because what will happen, you will nail your sort of, here's the wheelhouse I like to work in. And then you're going to add to that because we're all evolving people. So the next number of experiences you have, the next number of work situations you have are going to add further, tools to your toolkit, further insights about what you do like, what you don't like. So what I'm intending to try to help people do is to keep this current. But the great thing about it is that the reinvention process is much easier, or the evolution process is much easier because you're just adding small stories and small changes to your existing story. But it keeps it fresh. And that's also one of the ways that you continue to kind of add to your grab bag and tighten up your wheelhouse. And as we were talking earlier, Heather, that helps you clarify over time the path you're on, the vision, the mission you take on. So all of that to say, Tony, the second time through, it'll be that much faster, cleaner.
Yeah.
And then we can get into, you know, we will, in the next week or two, we will start getting deep into the accomplishments. So here's basically a preview of where we're going. Once we finish up with the descriptor pile, right? So your 8 words that you sort of are very comfortable with. Then when we shift into module 5, we're going to take what you've done in the unpacking your backpack, and we're going to then build those out into meaty accomplishments. And part of what we're going to do is embed those descriptors. And then from the accomplishments, we're then going to build the top level umbrella statement, which is the opportunity sought. And ultimately, all the accomplishments are going to point to that opportunity sought. And then we might do a little bit of tweaking to make sure the story is kind of all stands together. That'll be where we spend the next 2 or 3 weeks, because that's the accomplishments tend to be a fair bit of work to shape them.
Now, and those accomplishments are, like, when we did them so far, it was, and the example sort of said, you know, personal or work related, but most of them should probably be work related.
If they can be work related, yes, but also some of the personal ones, again, as they exemplify the story you're telling. So if the opportunity sought is I turn chaotic environments into well-controlled, high-functioning places, you might choose a story just to add an emotional and a personal flavor of over one summer, you know, completely renovating the backyard from a jungle which was close to being, you know, the city bylaws had come and we're going to, you know, whatever. And 6 months later, it was this, you know, it's this amazing place that's an oasis from all the nonsense around us. And, you know, just it's a story of transformation. It's a little bit different. It's not a business office, but many of the same aspects are there, right? The vision of what could be, the chaos before, the you know, the Zen-like environment afterwards, the happy people, you know. So it's all about how you choose to tell the story.
Okay.
Right? Because a lot of our personal things have the same storyline, you know, and it might, and again, what you want as you're laying out the story is the question we'll ask is this adding to the story? Is this making you a more believable person in terms of the opportunities that you're really seeking? Right? And you never know. I mean, it might be you go to somebody who's runs a garden center and says, "Oh my God, you're the kind of person I've been dying for. Not only do you know how to run the business, but you have an appreciation for gardens." You know, wow, that's terrific.
I've learned that I do not want physical jobs. I'm not. Yeah, physical jobs, no.
Okay. So what I would say is what we'll try to do is in the accomplishments, we'll build up as much as we can the professional ones. But if there are some ones, and we'll have this conversation many times over the next few weeks, if there are some ones that you say, here's a story, you know, here's something that I'm really quite proud of, but I'm not sure it belongs because it's a personal story or whatever. We'll have that conversation in the group, and we'll decide if there is a business angle that we can exemplify through the shaping of the story. Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And again, I apologize for the Zoom link. I will be sending out more accurate Zoom links in the future. And what I'll do is I'll follow up. I'll send out sort of a reminder of what the homework is for this week. And this is recorded, so I'll put it into our playlist, and I'll send you out the link to the playlist. It's the same link to the playlist, and the playlist will just grow over the coming 7 or 8 weeks.
That's in YouTube?
That's in YouTube, yeah.
Okay.
I'll send it to you in the email. That's you should just be able to click on it, and you will, depending on how many videos are in the, you know, depending on where we are in the process, there will be that many videos in the playlist.
Okay.
All right.
So
Very good
just
to see you both.
keep on doing.
All
Okay.
right, keep on trucking.
No, I find I'm actually using the book more because the laptop doesn't seem to let me get into my online stuff, and it's pretty much the same.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So I went through and I printed whatever sheets I needed before I came. So
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, because your laptop here and that when you're traveling.
with the Apple laptop, it doesn't seem to let me log in.
Oh,
Because I did try the enroll button and
yeah.
but yeah, it didn't seem to get anywhere. So I worked at home and prepared whatever sheets I might need
Okay.
and compared the text. It's not quite in the same order, but
Yeah, no,
but
we changed it. It evolved slightly, but very, very slightly.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So
from the book
and even yesterday I went back and sort of started this section over again to sort of see where I am on it.
Okay. Are you finding? I mean, the work can be challenging because it's, this is not a level of thinking we typically put into ourselves. But are you finding that at least in terms of how it's laid out and structured, that it's easy to follow?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. And I'm sure you will share with me if there's any challenges in either how it reads or getting the exercises done. That's because I would, I would like to, at some point I will put some effort into evolving this into the next level of online training, right? So maybe adding videos or something. I just want to make sure that I want the process to be as easy to follow as possible, given that this is tough. This tends to be tough work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's taking the time and thinking of the answers
Yeah.
or examples.
Yeah, I guarantee that you will be, the efforts will be well worth it because, when you have that level of clarity and can speak, with a level of passion and clarity about what you love doing, you don't have many of those conversations in our work world, and so that immediately makes you different and more interesting than the masses because because you're actually articulate about what you love to do and can actually provide real examples of how you've done those. And and again, I would suggest you don't see that very often. You see that with people who really are in charge of their careers and know exactly how they add value and what they want to do and all the rest. But that doesn't tend to be the bulk of humanity, from my experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, Tony, back to your house shaping, I guess. Thank you very much for your time, and we will see you. As I say, there'll be some emails coming out, and we'll see you a week from now on a proper Zoom link.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.